What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 28 of Destination Talk. I'm John Poz.
And I am Harry. And again, we are coming to you from Chop Studios located at 750 Route 34 in Matawan, New Jersey. And again, thank you to our sponsor, the Academy in Garwood. You can reach them at 908-540-6936 to schedule your free class. Today, we are joined by former Penn University wrestler, co-founder of Wrestling Mindset, Gene Zannetti. And we're going to dive into how he helps wrestlers overcome challenges and build mental toughness.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Hey, Gene, a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for being here today. How's everything going?
Great. Doing well.
So let's just start out, for those who may not know who you are, just tell us a little bit about who, your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So my brothers and I, we all wrestled from elementary school right through college, not far from John, actually. Right over in Edison, over at J.P. Stevens High School. I wrestled over at Rutgers for 3 years, transferred to Penn for my last 2. Greg, he wrestled at Rutgers all 5 years. Jeff wrestled all 5 years at Penn, so I got to spend 2 years with Jeff in college. And we were both all ranked in the top 20, all Ivy League wrestlers. And then eventually we started Wrestling Mindset to help wrestlers with their mindset, confidence, mental toughness. We all know how mental the sport of wrestling is, and a lot of times we wrestle better in practice than in the competition. So, when I learned about sports psychology, I thought it was one of the most interesting things in the world, right? How do you bring out your very best by working on your mind? And up until that point, there wasn't a whole lot of resources that were talking about how to improve your mindset. I mean, they were out there, don't get me wrong, but I didn't see them. They weren't readily available and in front of us.
Right.
So we wanted to start a business to make that more well-known and to help athletes.
Yeah, I mean, we've been, friends for how long now? A long time.
John, I remember when your parents were going to the gym that I was a personal trainer at back in 2012. So what does that put you at? I mean, that you were probably like 9 or 10 at the time.
Yeah, I think I was 10 years old. I was born in 2002, so yeah, 10 years old.
Yeah.
So long time. But can you talk a little bit about from the days when you were on the mat to now? How have you seen the sport of wrestling evolved?
Guys now are like professional athletes. I mean, I see it like, this stuff, like comparing, even thinking about the things you're doing. I mean, from being cultivated from a young kid, almost as like a professional athlete kind of. I mean, everything you've done with, I mean, your strength training, your agility, your everything with, nutrition. Now athletes, they have a strength coach, have nutrition, speed and agility, mindset, and they're wrestling year round, and they have all these resources available to them in terms of like flow wrestling, or even just simply YouTube for all sports. I mean, you could watch high level athletes all the time. Whereas when I was competing, and it wasn't even really that long ago. I mean, I graduated high school 02, 07 in college over at Penn, but it wasn't like YouTube was what it is now, where you could watch all these high level guys. And I mean, even in our area, there wasn't a whole lot of guys wrestling in college. In the GMC, Greater Middlesex County, there weren't a whole lot of college wrestlers. I mean, Dave Esposito was second in the NCAAs at Lehigh, but there weren't a whole lot of guys going college. Whereas now you see All-Americans like John Poznansky and, wrestlers from South Plainfield in our area. For us, it was, I want to be a state champ, and then I want to be a Division I wrestler. And it was kind of unclear what that was. The only time you saw Division I wrestling was, NCAA finals, not the semifinals, the finals. And every now and then they would show a match of Rutgers. And this is before Rutgers was what they are right now, right? So, I mean, the amount of resources and what these kids see, it's just unbelievable. You really can't compare how much more advanced guys are now than back when we were competing. So by we, I mean myself. You're a different generation, different era than me.
So what was it about wrestling that you liked, that gravitated to the sport?
Just the one-on-one aspect. I mean, you can't, you won't be held back by a team. I remember in baseball and football, which I loved, but if you play a great game, your team doesn't do so well, you can't control that. And the other way too, your team might win, but maybe you played a bad game.
Right.
So it's hard to kind of, you don't feel as connected. And also with team sports, I found I always loved playing team sports in the neighborhood with my friends because you felt like you had more control of the game. Like in baseball, hey, now I want to be a pitcher. Now I want to be in center field. You could kind of switch it around. Same thing with football. You could be the quarterback, you could be the running back, you could be the receiver in 3 straight plays. Whereas, when you play recreation, you have to kind of go where the coaches tell you to go, which is a great lesson for kids. I do think kids need that. That helped me. But as a kid who couldn't ever sit still and it was constantly in motion, just there was nothing like wrestling. It just, it felt the best for me.
It's definitely a unique sport.
Yes.
Yeah.
So do you think technology and social media has changed the mindset of today's athletes, not just wrestling, but all across every sport?
For better and worse. I mean, overall, I look at the technology as a win, right? There's so much we gain from it. You could, if you want to be great now, there's no excuse. You can be great, which is true to some extent in any period of time. But now with the information explosion, a lot better. Of course, it does bring other pressures because, like I said before, when I was younger and competing, you're basically thinking about the people in Middlesex County, which again is very good. There are good people in Middlesex County, but that's very different now. A kid goes on Instagram, they're thinking comparing to Bo Bassett, right? They're looking at the very best. So that could seem very out of reach in some ways. And also with wrestling clubs being everywhere. And when I started out in elementary school, there weren't wrestling clubs. There was like the Edge, and that's it, maybe the Peak. Drill Masters started coming out. It wasn't like now how every place, I mean, all these top level wrestlers and wrestling clubs and individual private sessions now. So, but the social media could create a lot of pressure, which is also what we've tried to help wrestlers overcome, not comparing as much to other people. Compare yourself in a good way. Like, hey, I want to learn this from these people. This wrestler is my body type. So we try to help the wrestlers overcome the pressures that come with social media, comparing to other people. There's always that, hey, why does this, it always seems like this person's improving more, that person's doing better than me. And no one ever posts a picture on social media when they're having a bad day. Right? So there's the illusion that everyone else is happy. And if I'm sad or mad or nervous, hey, there's something wrong with me. That's not true. Everyone else feels that way also. So there's challenges that come with it. Like any other piece of technology or any other piece of information, we want to make sure we use it. We don't let it use us.
So if we go back to your wrestling days, Gene, can you compare a little bit what it was like to wrestle at Rutgers, then wrestle at Penn, and then maybe tying it into, if you were to look back to what you're doing today, what was mindset like for you when you were competing?
Really the Iowa mentality, the grinder mentality, outwork everyone, which is great. You need to have that. The way I look at it, even, that's like kind of the 1.0. And I don't mean 1.0 in the sense of like, oh, like it's basic, like too basic. I mean, that's something that everyone has to have. If we're talking about, if you're trying to be the best, you have to have that grinder mentality. I'll run through the wall and I'm ready to and willing to outwork everyone. That's got to be a prerequisite, which could change at different points in time in wrestlers' careers. There wasn't as much talk about having fun and enjoying it. I mean, we spoke about that a little bit. It was like, hey, you should enjoy it. It's a sport. Have fun. It doesn't, it doesn't mean the entire world, right? Like, so we knew that, but it wasn't as much emphasis as you see now and it's not just Penn State, but other programs emphasizing have fun, enjoy yourself out there. But I think that also had to happen because when you look back at the Gable era and the people who were coming of age after that, it was still more or less a seasonal sport for people. So when the season came, you had to be absolutely locked in. Whereas now, it's not. Kids start when they're like 5 years old, even younger. My boys started wrestling when they were 3, and I take them to wrestling all year round. And they're not competing right now, but there's other people their age who are competing. So they're getting high level instruction from like former college level wrestlers and also, coaches who've been there, have done that. They've coached national champs. So, and that's the norm. That's not just my kids. That's what's going around all across the state of New Jersey and all across the country. So there has to be more of an emphasis of, we got to have fun. We have to enjoy ourselves, keeping the mood a little bit lighter and a little bit more relaxed. It can't, because it's not just season grind. Does that make sense? That's a big difference between when I was competing. Everyone goes to a club. Everyone's competing in national tournaments.
Well, I think to your point, and we were kind of talking about this off air before you came on, is that there is no off season in many ways for these kids, and they don't get an opportunity to just step away from their sport and maybe work on other things. If it's not just resting or getting stronger or getting faster, it's just they're constantly competing. And I'm not so sure if that's the right way we should be going with youth athletes in all sports.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I think there should be development of the total of not just the total athlete, but the total person, right? I think it is great to have team sports because they teach you lessons that you're not going to necessarily get in wrestling. Yes, wrestling's a team sport in the sense that they keep a team score, but it's really not. Like when you're out there, it's not like you pass the ball to someone. There's not strategy going on between one individual and the other. It's not like that. So it is good to have team sports. It's good playing a sport with a ball, hand-eye coordination, overall athleticism. Plus, it's fun, right? I mean, we have to also think about what is their overall development, right, as a person. And I think it's a good thing to be around people of different interests and even outside of sports, you know, playing an instrument, doing an art class, you know, chorus, you know, whatever, anything, you know, doing things like, I was an altar boy when I was younger, being involved in student council, like in you know, try and really get your kid to get out and try a lot of different things so they find what's going to work for them. And that'll also gear them towards what they're meant to do for their entire life. So I think you need to be looking at that big picture. And it's not just I'm trying to build a champion. I mean, of course, that's part of the reason. One of the things that was always in the back of my head, yeah, when I have children, I want to help like make them into a champion. Yes, that's great. But you realize there's far more important things. I want my kids to be good Catholics, number one. I want them to be good, you know, family people, do well in school. I want them to be gentlemen, and my daughter a lady. Well, that's, you know, when at a young age, if you're just thinking about building them into a champion, you might do things and parent in a way that's going to be at the expense of those other areas. Right. So I need to make sure I have my priorities straight. So I make them the kind of person, the right kind of person, not just be a champion on the mat.
Right. Yeah, it's bigger than sports. It's being a good person in life, you know.
Right. It's everything.
Yeah.
It's just the overall package.
Yeah. Another thing when you were mentioning, didn't Dylan in a previous episode talk about that? Not like guys not doing sports the whole year round, not taking time off.
Yeah.
Wasn't that something we talked about?
Dylan is Dylan Kelly. He was one of our previous guests. He's a goalie coach. He played at the one level below the NHL, and he was talking about how kids want to be on the ice. They love to be on the ice, but at some point you've got to get them off the ice. Even Coach Liddell was talking about that too. You know, let them get away from it. Let them come back to you as a parent, and then telling you that, hey, I'm ready to get back out there, because then that lets you know as a parent that they missed the sport and it's time to play. So
right. Yeah, exactly. They have to want to do it on their own.
Right.
If they're going to be great at anything, they're going to have to put in a lot of time that's alone by themselves and something that they want to do. So yes, we want to put them around the sport, but ultimately they're going to have to choose it on their own. So, and the other thing is, remember, just overuse injuries. That's another thing that we're going to see now more than ever before, how people are getting hurt bad at a younger age because of overuse. So like, is there a way to improve that with, of course, like prehab and corrective exercise and mobility and stability? Yes, that's all true. That's going to help. But taking time off the sport is also going to help, and not using the same muscles in the same way all the time. That's going to prevent injuries, and it's going to help them develop other important parts of their body and their mind that's going to help them in that sport, if they even choose to do that sport down the line. It's funny because in our head, like I kind of look at it like, okay, wrestling is this bucket that for my kids that I'm trying to develop. They may not even choose wrestling though.
Right.
And if I were to push because I want them to be a wrestler, I've seen it destroy parent-child relationships, and it's the saddest thing in the world. It's a sport. It's recreation. Yeah, we love it. I want it to be the best at it, but that's not necessarily what my kids want to do. So we have to keep that in the back of our mind too, and not even in the back of our mind, in the forefront, that there's important life lessons in general. So again, using sports, not being used by sports, and not trying to keep up. I think a lot of times the problem is we're keeping up with the Joneses. If I see a kid beat my son in practice, I'm thinking, wait, maybe we're doing something wrong. Maybe I should be parenting different. That doesn't necessarily mean anything.
So what is the most common mental struggle that you see in the work that you do every single day?
Focusing too much on the outcome, I would say. I mean, that's why we have we developed that, the predator mindset. We made that analogy to make things much more simple and to avoid a lot of these common mental mistakes, like you said. So everyone's heard control the things you could control, forget about the things you can't control.
Mhm.
Everyone's heard that. Well, how come it's not sticking in everyone's mind? Because we tend to be pretty bad at that. We focus a lot on things that are outside of our control, and it leads to fear, anger, sadness, all these things. So we came up with the predator prey analogy. Predator animals, their eyes are on the front of their head.
Mhm.
So we say eyes on the front like to hunt. Prey animals, their eyes are on the side of the head. So we say eyes on the side like to hide. And that's your analogy for focusing on the right things, your effort, your attitude, your aggressiveness, your preparation, your lifestyle. That's what you could control.
Mhm.
Everything else, which is a lot, way more, there's way more outside of your control that we don't want to waste our time or energy focusing on. Like I said, number one, thinking too much about the outcome. I want to win right now. I don't want to lose right now. Comparing ourselves to other people, caring too much about what other people think about us. I want to look good in front of other people. I don't want to look bad in front of other people. Social media obviously amplifies that, because if you hit a good move on me in a wrestling match, I might be on Instagram the next day.
Right.
And then friends and people that I know and parents that I know are commenting on it, and I see it.
Mhm.
So what does that do to a kid? It's like I said, that's different than what I grew up with in our period of time in sports. So yeah, focusing on all those things outside of our control, that's not only the biggest, I think, mindset, the mental block, if you want to call it, mindset red flag, however you want to frame that in your head.
Mhm.
That's not only the biggest thing in sports, but just again in life, focusing on things outside of our control, and that it sucks the life out of us, our energy, and it's a waste of time. We could put all of that time and energy and focus into what we can control, and you could be very successful and happy.
Mhm.
When you're working with different athletes, do you have a slightly different approach to, say, the middle school athlete versus the high school athlete versus the college athlete?
Maybe it depends. Yeah, it does depend on the kid, right? So if a kid is not as serious about sports, then we might, and they're starting to get into it. You have to get them to be hungry and to get to that 1.0, like we said, that Iowa mentality. Hey, you want to outwork everyone. You have to work as hard as you can, be the first guy in the room, last guy out, which is something, of course, you want to continue throughout their career. But you might talk to them a little bit more about winning right away to get them excited about it. Now, once they've internalized winning, they want to win. They're doing the right things. You don't usually have to go back to that, unless you do probably at different points in time, because it's not like it stays stable. John and I both know it's, we go through ups and downs, and sometimes we're motivated, sometimes we're not. So we only return to that if we're starting to feel either bored or lazy or tired or feeling peer pressured, starting to slack off. That's when we'd get back to that. Hey, you got to want to win. But if once you see the wrestler is there, now we're focusing more on what we're doing on a day-to-day basis to improve.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I might frame it differently to them, but let's say both kids are equally serious about the sport of wrestling at different ages. I would give them the same lessons. I would just say it to them differently, because you're just going to speak to an 11-year-old different than you're going to speak to a 21-year-old. But the message would be no different. If they're at the same place, they're both equally motivated, I'm not going to change my lesson. Unless I see a kid's at a different point. They need something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's
everybody's different.
Yeah, it's more based on their needs than their age.
Mm-hmm.
And as a follow-up to that, we touched on the technology, but with NIL, transfer portal, all this stuff going on, how are you addressing those circumstances, say, with more like the high school and college athlete? Because there's a lot of pressure on these kids now.
Yeah, I mean, still focusing on the things that you could control and knowing what's most important. Like a lot of times kids are thinking about going to college just to get, I have to be a Division I wrestler and I have to be getting money, either whether it be NIL or scholarship money. And it's like, listen, that's not what college is about. Okay, there's very few people that are really, let's be honest, there's very few people that are really going in with their primary goal to be an Olympic champion. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not saying you're bad if you're not trying to be an Olympic champ or even trying to be an NCAA champ. There's different goals. College is supposed to set you up for the future, right? So going Division I or getting scholarship money or getting NIL money doesn't really matter as much in the grand scheme of things. Are you putting yourself in the right place to develop you for the future that you want to have? That's critical. And I see it all the time, especially at a lot of these top tier Catholic private schools where they're, you see people going to this school and that school. So in your head, it sounds really enticing to, I want to be going to a Division I school, or I want to be getting money. It's like, that's not what you should be thinking about. Go to the school that's a good fit for you, that has the career you're looking to get into. And that's another thing. Are these wrestlers and these athletes thinking about their career at all in high school? You should be, because that should dictate where you're going to college.
Right.
Right. And we don't look at it like that. And a lot of times, sometimes we think, oh, I just got to get, well, John and I, we're in the same boat here. But a lot of people thinking, hey, I'm going to travel far away just because it sounds better than going to a local school. I remember in like elementary school, middle school, I would say, oh, I'm going to go anywhere but Rutgers, because Rutgers, it's kind of like everyone goes there and it's local around us. When I went to college, that's all I applied to.
Right.
I was like, I want to go to Rutgers.
Me too.
I want to be close to my family. I don't want to go anywhere else. So, and the good thing about that is, now having a business, if you want to go into business, you're going to want to build up connections in that area. Well, if I went to school at Stanford, nothing against Stanford, but my connections aren't, if I'm having a business here, how's that going to help me? Right? You have to think about these kind of things. I know we don't have a crystal ball into the future, but you want to think about that. And also, if you're really close with your family, I know John is, it's like, you want to be near them. That's not a small deal. That's a very big deal. And in fact, a lot of people going so far away from their family just because they think they're supposed to do it. Guess what? A lot of times those kids find themselves really struggling athletically, academically, socially, because they kind of don't know who they are outside of their family. And I'm not saying, and college is supposed to help you with that, but we don't realize just how valuable it is to have people that we love near us. It's a big deal. Don't just chase the NIL money and the transfer portal and who wants me today. Think long term. That's what I'm really trying to say. Thinking long term and big picture.
Well, there's only so many college coaching positions that are out there, assistant positions, clubs that you can go to. So, they're usually filled up anyway. So unless somebody retires or walks away from it, there's how many wrestlers out there. There's only so many positions they can go to. So they should be looking beyond the sport, as should all athletes for that matter, because not everyone gets the opportunity to go professionally.
Yeah. It's also like what we talked about earlier off camera, networking.
Right.
It's all about networking. Who you know, building relationships. It's what the long game's about.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of times we think it's like, well, if we're a national champ, then we go on and we're a college coach. And yes, there are people who are called to be college coaches, but is that really what you want? Because being a college coach, talk to some of those college coaches. It's a hard job. They're away from their family all the time. They have to, and it's just, this is part of what they have time with their family at different points, but it's not easy to travel around, to recruit, to lose a recruit, to lose a guy. Like, do you want, and then if you lose your job there, you might have to move to a totally different part of the country. If that's what you want to do, fine, but that's not for everyone. So you just have to be thinking about that. It's not just, oh, hey, I'll be a coach after. Being a coach is a calling. That's serious business. Not just, hey, I was a good wrestler, now I'm going to coach. That might be for you. It might not be for you.
Yeah. So can you give us a little bit of advice on what you offer to parents of young wrestlers?
Yeah, we do our one-on-one sessions with our wrestlers. There's some parents that we work with also. They've come to us because they realize that a lot of times their relationship with their kid is suffering, and they want to learn what to do themselves, what to say, what not to say, which isn't entirely obvious. Not entirely obvious what to tell a kid and what not to tell a kid. And I think about that as an older brother. It was like this with my younger brothers. Before I started Wrestling Mindset and started studying sports psychology, I didn't know. And inadvertently, I was telling my brothers things that were putting more pressure on them. So, and then even if you do know the mindset information, it's hard when it's your kid because you're so emotionally involved, because it becomes tough. And it's also the different roles, right? Most importantly, I'm a dad, not a coach. So we work with the parents one-on-one also. We also have what we call our Wrestling Mindset Parents Cheat Sheet. It's basically one sheet of paper just giving tips for them, what to do, what not to do. A lot of the things that we spoke about before, keeping things in the proper perspective, right? Proper perspective. When in doubt, don't talk about wrestling. We're talking about now, once you get closer to the postseason, the best thing a parent could do is really neutralize themselves. And a lot of times they'll put too much pressure on the kid just by talking about it a lot. So towards the end of the season, we recommend the parents back off a little bit more. Really asking the kid more, hey, do you want to talk about this? Kind of letting them drive the ship, right? In the beginning, a parent might need to be more involved, but as time goes on, the parent wants to back away unless they really see there's something they need to say. because they could drive the kid away from the sport too. And you want it to be fun for them, not something they're doing because my parents are making me do it. Even if they become a really good wrestler, that's not the definition of success. How's your relationship with the kid after wrestling's over? That's what I want to know, because if my kid's a national champ or an Olympic champ, but we don't get along after wrestling's done, that's a massive failure in my mind. I'd rather them not wrestle. And I'm serious.
As Wrestling Mindset was getting off the ground and you were coming about with this idea, what was that early process like, and how has it evolved through the years for you?
Yeah, so I didn't, like a lot of kids in high school, I didn't know what I really wanted to do. My dad was an accountant, so I took an accounting elective. One of my friends recommended I take a psychology elective, and I hated accounting, and I loved psychology. And I remember thinking, like, I could do this. This is something I would really like to do. So it was just kind of one day I got to be like the moderator for, it was like a mock couples therapy mediation thing. And I was the therapist, and it was a total disaster in class. They weren't taking it serious. But I remember after class, like stopping, and it felt like everything was still. And I thought, if they were taking this serious, I think I could have helped these people. And at that point I knew, at that moment as a senior in high school, I said, I want to be a psychologist. So, okay, that was the broad vision, psychologist. Then, year or two later, I was at a Borders bookstore with a girlfriend on a date, and I was looking through the self-help section. And my mom was a big, like, Tony Robbins, Dr. Phil person. My dad was real big with sports. So I always I always loved sports. I always loved kind of like self-help. And I saw a book called Fight Your Fears and Win by Dr. Don Green. Picked it up, and I learned it was about sports psychology. I never heard of sports psychology. So at that point I said, this is what I want to do. It was another one of those epiphany moments. I don't want to just be a psychologist. I want to be a sports psychologist. And then I guess it was a year later, I was at Rutgers, and my friend Chris Ressa, who was a wrestler on the team, national qualifier, second in the state of New Jersey for Lenape Valley. And he told me, hey, Zannetti, you got to read this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, which is about owning a business. And I listened to him. He was my friend. I knew he was, he made pretty strong recommendations. So I read it, and it said there's some people who are like kind of more built to be business owners. They want to be business owners. And here's some of the advantages of that. And at that moment I knew, I said, I want to have a sports psychology business. So it went from here, psychology, to sports psychology business. And then eventually my brother Jeff and I, we started doing this, and we said, well, are we going to make this sports general? Like, we want to help everyone. And he said, well, Jeff had read a business book talking about the importance of niche marketing. And he said, we should really focus just on wrestling, and then we'll get people from other sports too, but let's just call it Wrestling Mindset. See, the mental block in my head was, if I just say wrestling, I'm going to eliminate other people. Right. Well, that might be true at first, but now I have a captive audience that I could market to, and I know where to go. I know where to advertise. Because when you say sports, okay, there's sports everywhere. Where do I go? What do I do? If you say wrestling, okay, I know what I got to do. I got to go to wrestling clubs. I need to go to serious wrestling teams. So it became Wrestling Mindset. So the picture got clearer and clearer and clearer over time, not overnight. And then, Jeff and I, we formalized the business in 2012, even though I'd been taking clients since 2008 while I was at my master's degree program. I had a really good mentor, Dr. Rob Gilbert, who is a sports psychology professor over at Montclair State for probably 40 or 50 years now. He's still over there. God bless the guy. Yeah.
I've heard of him. He's affiliated with Bill Parisi, and he's done a lot of work with them. And he's a brilliant mind. I've listened to him speak.
Oh yeah, great man, and he'll give you anything.
Yes.
Still, so you go over there, he gives you the time, and he mentored me with this. And I remember saying I want to be a sports psychologist, and this is back in 2008 when I was at my master's degree program at Springfield College, where I was coaching also. And he said, you could start doing this right now. Just don't call yourself a sports psychologist. And so I started as a mindset coach in 2008 until we formalized the business in 2012, even before I got my master's degrees. And then once I had the 2 master's degrees in sports psychology and clinical psychology and became a school psychologist, Jeff was a financial advisor at Merrill Lynch. We always wanted to have a business together. And at that point in time, we said, hey, let's go all in. So Wrestling Mindset. And our first big presentation that we had was speaking at the National Wrestling Coaches Convention, which is every summer in Florida. And we spoke there. We got to be in front of some of the top coaches and wrestlers in the country. We started working with Iowa State. Kevin Jackson was one of the first people, Olympic champ, coach of Iowa State, who was coach of Team USA also. He was the guy who took a chance on us, along with Coach McFarland from Michigan. They had 5 All-Americans that year, so we started working. So boom, right away, we were working with some of the top teams and some of the top wrestlers in the nation. And I think what gave us the advantage there was we were coming at sports psychology from a very wrestling-specific point of view. Because were there people more experienced than me? Yeah, a lot more in terms of sports psychology. But when you combine the sports psychology and the wrestling, we had our little niche carved out for us, where now we were able to communicate with the very top. So we were very blessed to have that. And it just started off with myself and Jeff. And for 4 or 5 years, I was the only one providing service. And eventually we standardized a curriculum. And at this point, we have just under 100 mindset coaches that work for us across the country. So we've been very blessed to have good people that work with us. And it's become an unbelievable success. And thanks be to God for it. That was always what I had dreamed to do. And we are helping people outside of the sport of wrestling as well.
We had one of your coaches on, Chad Parks.
Chad, yeah, he's great.
He was one of our previous guests. He was a wonderful guest and provided a lot of insight to what he was doing and to the show.
Excellent.
So where do you see the long-term vision for Wrestling Mindset within the next 5 to 10 years? What do you see next?
Still, a lot of the market is untapped. I mean, we probably worked with about 700 kids in season and about 100 teams. But think about that. Are there more than 700 serious wrestlers across the country that are really investing a lot in the sport? A lot more. Are there a lot more teams than that? Sure. So I see, still the wrestling market is still nowhere near tapped out. So we're going to continue growing there. Obviously, the sport of wrestling. And eventually I would like to expand this to other sports more formally. We started doing this back in like 2019, 2020, before COVID hit. And then we realized, hey, it's much better. It makes more sense financially for us to just invest in wrestling. But we broke it out to lacrosse, baseball, tennis, hockey, soccer, and everything. We were working with national champs, All-Americans in all these different sports. I mean, our lacrosse team, RIT, they were 2-time D3 lacrosse national champions. We were working with Andy Pettit and Lance Berkman's baseball team down in Texas. They were coaching a high school team, and we were mindset coaches for them. They were state champs in baseball. We were working with them. So we had success in other sports. But, in the meantime, we realized, hey, it's just focus on wrestling because that's our bread and butter. But in the future, yes, I would love to be not just number one in wrestling, but number one in all sports.
So one of the questions that we like to ask our guests, and I guess you come at it from a different perspective, both as a former athlete and what you do currently with mindset and mental training. With what you know now, what advice would you go back to maybe not only tell yourself, but share then with athletes and parents today?
Keeping it in perspective, make the most important thing the most important thing. I would have taken my faith a lot more serious from a younger age. And when my brother Greg said, when he entered the seminary right after he was done at Rutgers, he wanted to be a priest. Like, I guess it was a year or two after Rutgers, he wanted to be a priest. And I started taking my faith more serious. And obviously, number one, because it's the right thing to do. And also there would have been some natural benefits too in wrestling, staying out of trouble, being more focused, not getting as distracted. So faith, number one, for sure. I would have had more fun also, looking at it more, looking at it more that this is fun. This is something I want to do. I would have definitely worked on my mindset because we didn't know as much about it. And I was putting the pieces together during my wrestling career. When I read the sports psychology book and all this, I'm putting some of these pieces together, have a pre-match routine, focus on this, don't focus on that. But I didn't have a cohesive whole to understand it. So having more fun, putting more time in my mindset, being more disciplined, and I was pretty disciplined. I wasn't getting into a lot of trouble, but I don't think anyone really looks back and says, I wish I would have been less disciplined, right? So proper perspective, having more fun, more discipline, those things all would have helped. Having more of a predator mindset rather than a prey mindset, not wanting to look bad in front of other people. What are other people thinking of me? I have to win. Focus a little bit more on score points, have fun, be aggressive.
Awesome.
And then advice to athletes and parents, as they are approaching the recruiting process, how would you help guide them through that? What advice can you give them? Big picture
Perspective. What are you ultimately looking to do with your life? Don't compare. It's still the predator mindset, right? Whether I'm going to help the kid on the mat or helping them with recruiting, it's the same thing. What is it that you were trying to do? What is the ultimate goal? And not just wrestling. Where do you want to end up? What's the end game? What's your future career look like? You need to know that and moving in that direction, not just chasing short-term money. You'll make the money back, right? You'll make that if you're doing the career that you're supposed to be in, if you're using the gifts that God gave you, whatever money that you would have got for the sports, you'll make that back and then some. So focus mostly on which college is going to be the best fit for you long term. Nothing wrong with going Division I and chasing a national title if that's really what you want. But remember, there's a lot of sacrifice that goes with it, and it's not for everyone. If I'd jumped in, maybe Division III, I would have been possibly competing for a national title all 4 years. That would have been a whole heck of a lot of fun instead of being a backup wrestler for 2 or 3 years at Rutgers, or 2 years at Rutgers, right? Being behind guys who were just better than me. I mean, but I wanted to be Division I. That was in my head. But I know there's a lot of people, and it's not saying anything bad about them. That's not what you want to do. You don't have to do that. Don't feel like you just have to follow the crowd or look good on Instagram. What will ultimately work out? What is ultimately going to set you up for the future that you want? That'd be my big thing.
So where can people connect with you in Wrestling Mindset?
It's wrestlingmindset.com. Follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Mindset. Reach out to us. And you could send us an email, mindset@wrestlingmindset.com. We're really easy to get a hold of. We try to make ourselves easy to get a hold of so we can help as many people as we can. But, I get excited about this because this is exactly the kind of thing that I wish I had. A lot of these things are to put these pieces together, and I'm on my own. And it's like, if it was all packaged and made wrestling specific, it would have been extremely helpful. So that's why we do what we do. Ultimately we love it. We're trying to give, like any coach, you try to give the athletes what you wish you had. So we're very happy to connect, very happy to help. If there's ever anything anyone needs, just give us a call. We're happy to help.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we're just here to, like, even in my profession, working with athletes, it's just to share what my experiences were and to help them and guide them to the best of my abilities, and hope that they listen to something.
Yeah.
Hope they take one nugget out of it at the very least.
And you don't know the impact that you have on the guy until down the line, because this is something that I learned that's important to remember, because it keeps you motivated, and because it's tough. The kids are frustrating sometimes to work with, but a kid will come up to you 5-10 years down the line. When you said this to me, it changed my life. You don't even remember you said it, but you being that consistent coach, both of you guys being that consistent mentor, you never know the impact you're having on someone. And it might be the kid you think isn't listening at all. Sometimes it clicks later for some kids. And that's okay, as long as they get the lesson, right? The biggest thing is that they're an overall success in life, not just the champion in sports. So we got to keep that big picture. Otherwise, we go crazy as coaches too, getting frustrated with kids. Well, so keep up what you guys are doing.
I think you definitely touched on something that's worth saying. It's staying consistent and just showing up. And I think that's where a lot of people, I don't want to use the word fail, but that's where they fall off. If something doesn't come easy for them, they stop showing up or they stop being consistent. But the ones that continue to push through, even like when you use like they're not feeling well or lazy, but just show up, and that's how you push through those barriers.
Absolutely. That's showing up is half the battle.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Gene, we want to thank you very much for taking time out of your day. I know John had mentioned earlier, but I too also was interviewed by you, so it's nice to have been on the other side of this. And I appreciate you coming on Destination Talk with us. We wish you continued success, and we're here to help as well. Anything that we can do, please let us know. And until we see everyone again, that's a wrap.